Somewhere on the Canadian prairie around 2001, a farmer walked out to the edge of his land and cut his own fence. He had his reasons. A few years earlier, the government had told men like him there was money in wild boar, exotic meat, a new market, a way to keep a hard farm alive a little longer. So he had bought the animals, fed them, raised them up behind wire. Then the market collapsed about as fast as it had appeared, and the boar standing in his pens went from an investment to a bill he could not pay. So he opened the fence and walked away and let them wander out into the snow. He was not worried about it. He had spent his whole life on that prairie, and he knew exactly what winter did out there. 40 below, wind that comes across open ground with nothing in its way, snow deep enough to bury a standing animal where it stood. Nothing soft lives through a season like that. The boar would be dead by spring. The bones would disappear under the next snowfall, and the problem would quietly solve itself. The problem did not solve itself. The pigs did not freeze. They dug. They drove down into the snowbanks and the cattails and hollowed out dens that trapped their own body heat, little caves in the white that stayed warm enough to live in, and they rode the whole winter out down there and walked back up into the spring like nothing had happened. There were more of them, in fact, than he had ever turned loose. That would be a strange little footnote if it had happened one time, to one herd, on one farm. It did not. It happened across 3 provinces at once. The animals that walked out of all those cut fences did not just survive the thing that was supposed to kill them. They bred and they spread, and as of right now, there are tens of thousands of them rooting their way across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, adding around 9% to their own numbers every single year. Researchers up there have logged more than 60,000 separate sightings, and the front edge of all of it is sitting a short walk from the United States. This is not a story about the pig you are picturing, not the pink thing from a children's book, not the fat hog dozing in the shade at a county fair. The animal moving across this continent is something people built by accident and then could not take back, and the scientists who study it do not really spend their time arguing about whether it is coming. They argue about whether anything we have left can stop it. Its name is Sus scrofa. The farm pig and the Eurasian wild boar are the same animal under the skin, and that is the whole trouble, because it means the two of them can breed together, and when they do, you get something bigger and meaner and far harder to kill than either parent ever managed on its own. Ryan Brook, a professor at the University of Saskatchewan who has spent years of his life chasing these animals across the prairie, calls what comes out a super pig. He also calls feral swine the most invasive animal on the planet and an ecological train wreck, and he is not a man who reaches for a big phrase just to hear himself say it. The largest one he has ever put his own hands on weighed 638 pounds. Everything that makes the super pig so hard to stop, it inherited for free. From the wild boar, it took the instincts, the wariness, the muscle, the thick coat, the strange talent for looking out at a frozen wasteland and reading it as a place to make a living instead of a place to die. From the farm pig, it took size and fertility, because people spent centuries breeding hogs to grow fast and breed often, and every bit of that went straight down into the hybrid. What stepped out the far side has the body of a wild boar, the appetite of a farm animal, and the nerves of something that very much does not want to be found. They move at night. They learn from the things that go wrong around them. They go dead still the instant they sense eyes on them, which is most of the reason that millions of people could be living a few fields away from one and never once see it. The scientists tracking them lean almost entirely on trail cameras and on the wreckage left behind, because out in the world, you do not get the pig. You get the torn ground where the pig was. Then there is the math, and the math is the part that should keep you awake. A female can begin breeding at 6 months old. She can drop more than 1 litter in a year, several piglets at a time, better than 10 brand new animals out of a single sow inside 12 months. Run that forward in your head, and it stops behaving like a population and starts behaving like a chain reaction. Brook puts a number on it that sounds invented right up until you check it. You could go out every year and kill 65% of every wild pig on the entire landscape, more than half of them gone every 12 months, and the population would still go up. There is almost no other large animal on Earth you are able to say that about, which is exactly why the obvious answer falls apart. People hear destructive animal and they think, fine, we hunt it, the same way we hunted everything else that ever got in our way. With these pigs, hunting is close to useless, and it can quietly make the whole thing worse. A hunter actually setting out to kill one succeeds maybe 2 or 3 times in 100, and every single time somebody fires into a group and misses most of it, the ones still standing take the lesson to heart. They grow warier. They push deeper into the dark. They break apart and scatter across the country and start brand new groups in places nobody is watching. Several states have banned hunting them outright because it turns out the worst thing you can do to a pig problem is shoot at it and teach it to be smarter than you. If you have made it this far, this is exactly the kind of story this channel exists for. The slow disasters nobody bothered to put on the evening news, the things creeping along the edges of the map while everyone's attention is somewhere else entirely. Subscribe and stick around, because it only gets stranger from here, because the pigs are not staying politely in Canada. Brook and his team have flown aerial surveys across the prairie and already found them standing on both sides of the North Dakota border. They have recorded a group in Manitoba, sitting less than 30 kilometers from Minnesota. Some of those prairie populations are now close enough that a single pig could cover the distance to the United States in a walk of 2 or 3 days. To work out where they would head once they crossed, the researchers bolted GPS collars onto a couple dozen wild pigs and followed them every 3 hours for over a year, and then turned all that movement into a map of the most likely roads in. The map points straight at the water. Fort Peck Lake in Montana, Devil's Lake in North Dakota, the long, crooked length of the Missouri River, the kind of country that hands a pig everything it could ever ask for, food and water and cover all stitched together, running in one unbroken sheet right across the line somebody drew on a map. Nobody should be surprised, Brook says, when pigs start walking over that border, if they have not already, and the people whose job it is to stop them are throwing everything they have at the problem. Big steel corral traps with names like the Boar Buster dropped over a whole group at once, net guns fired down out of helicopters, poisons like sodium nitrite that get studied and then mostly set aside because they kill everything else that finds the bait too. Drones and aircraft running the northern border for the federal government, crowdsourced reporting lines where anyone who spots one is begged to call it in, programs with names like Squeal on Pigs. Montana went so far as to ban people from raising or moving wild pigs inside the state at all. And for all of that effort, the honest verdict from the people closest to it is that in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, the pigs can no longer be wiped out. The most anyone can do up there now is try to slow them down. We already know how this ends, because it has played out once in miniature, on the right side of the border. In the far northwest corner of Minnesota, a small group of pigs wandered off a farm and went wild. It was not an invasion, it was a handful of animals. But before anyone could get to them, they had already started breeding, and they tore into a wildlife preserve and flipped the ground up the way these animals always do. The Federal Wildlife Service came in and shot the entire group, and Minnesota got to go back to calling itself a pig-free state. A few escaped animals, caught early, killed fast, and even that clean little success story left a chewed-up nature preserve behind it. Now, hold that picture in your head and take away the part where it is only a handful. Picture the version that walks across the border on its own legs out of a source population of tens of thousands that no one on Earth can switch off. Because that version is not hypothetical. It already exists. It just lives in the South. Down in Texas and across the southeastern states, feral pigs are not a warning about something coming. They are a catastrophe already in full swing, somewhere between 6 and 9 million animals, spread through at least 35 states, doing around $2.5 billion in damage to American crops every single year. They go down a planted field like a machine, rolling the soil over one row at a time. They out-eat the deer and the turkeys, and then they eat the turkey eggs and the fawns, and just about anything else too slow to get away. They wallow in the creeks and foul the water. They carry disease, including the strain of swine fever that could tear straight through this country's hog farms and gut the entire pork industry if it ever got a foothold. In Texas alone, they have been blamed for $100 million in property damage in a state so overrun it lets people shoot them from hot air balloons. And every so often, they do something a great deal worse than ruin a lawn. In 2019, in Texas, a woman was killed by a group of wild pigs in the yard of the home where she worked. That is rare. It is also a flat reminder of what these animals turn into when there are enough of them and they have stopped being afraid of us. Now, the fair objection, because there is one. People have farmed shoulder to shoulder with hogs since there were farms. Wild pigs are not new, and the whole giant super pig pouring out of the frozen north has exactly the shape of a story built to scare you, so let me say the honest part plainly. Not every one of these things is a monster the size of a couch. 600 pounds is the biggest one ever pulled out of the wild, not the one you would actually run into. The northern invasion has not conquered anything yet. Minnesota still calls itself clean. North Dakota shoots the occasional stray and moves on with its day. That doomsday map is a forecast, not a photograph of something that already happened. But handing all of that over does not make the animal ordinary. The biology is not in dispute, only the timing of it. These really are bigger than the boar and faster breeding than the farm pig, and they really can live straight through a winter that everybody assumed would be a wall. And the proof of what happens when you shrug and let them settle in is not a guess or a model. It is the entire American South, 6 million animals deep, billions of dollars a year, a problem so far past saving that the official goal down there is no longer to win, but simply to slow the bleeding. The question was never whether these pigs are dangerous. The South answered that one a long time ago. The only thing still hanging open is whether the North can keep itself from becoming the next chapter of the very same book. So the science is not standing here telling you the country is already lost. It is telling you something narrower and a lot harder to shake off. That we built an animal we never meant to build. That it is frighteningly good at the one single thing we most need it not to do. And that the cold northern border we always quietly assumed would hold the line is the exact same cold these pigs taught themselves to tunnel through 20 years ago. The window to keep them out is still open. It is just closing, a little more every year, and the math is sitting on the pig side of the table. So it ends where it started. A prairie, deep snow, a cut fence, and a man walking away from it, certain the winter would do his dirty work for him. The winter did not. They dug down into it and waited it out and came back up stronger than they went under, and their descendants are out there tonight, somewhere along the whole top edge of the United States, moving while nobody is watching, in numbers nobody can fully count. Not the soft thing we thought we were turning loose that day. The thing it quietly became, in the exact moment we stopped paying attention.